welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling. Shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where I am back. If you didn't know, the last 2 episodes were pre-recorded. I think I very explicitly say at the start of every episode, to be fair. But yeah, it's because I went to visit some friends. It was the League of Legends World Finals over the weekend, and oftentimes we have a sort of gathering. And whoa, hold on, sorry, the OBS interface is different. I just noticed the record button looks completely different. So that distracts me for a second, but hopefully this records fine. I guess I should actually check the settings to make sure it's recording in the correct resolution, because last time I did that, it did not, and I was like, what? And it uploaded weird, but anyway. Hello everyone, right now in Fawnhollow, it's 5:13 PM on Monday, November 20th, 2023. Sorry, I will get a new microphone stand eventually, one which, I'm hoping to get one without springs, because the springs, like, they make a really annoying noise every single time I accidentally touch it. So mic stand, you have served me well, but it has been like 6 years, probably more than 6 years or something since, maybe, I don't know, since I've had you, and it's probably time that I've gotten an upgrade. But I'm just seeing if there's any like Black Friday sales, so I'll probably be buying it like this weekend. We'll see. You know, I've got my eye on one, and I'll get a shock mount to go with it as well to hopefully reduce the amount of times these big shake things happen. We actually missed Amelia's birthday. I'm very sorry to say, Amelia, because I was not here. So yeah, it was the League of Legends World Finals. How you might ask, how World Finals? You probably already know results if you follow it. But you know, T1. They're not called SKT anymore. I just know them as SKT. T1 won a very convincing fashion. Apparently, it was like the fastest World Finals in League of Legends history or something. It was insanely quick. I didn't pay too much attention to it. I was just kind of there to vibe with my friends, to be perfectly honest. There's a few things we could talk about. Now, the question is, what am I going to talk about today? I think I'll probably start out talking, well, I mean, you already know, you can see the title of the video. Probably I'm going to talk about the board game route, because that was like one of the major things we did, apart from, you know, League of Legends World Finals. There was a big group of us. There was like 9 of us, so, you know. I brought Root because, you know, I was talking to my friends about it, being like, it's a game. I think I mentioned it ages ago. I was like, it's a board game I saw ages ago, and I was like, that's a really cool concept. And then I promptly forgot about it for years. And then Northern Lion played it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a game, I should get it at some point. And then I promptly forgot about it for another year until you know, we come to present day, when I remembered it again because of a random video someone made. It was like War Games Turned to Cute or something, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a game, I forgot I wanted to buy that like ages ago. And to be fair, I think it's actually a good thing now, because I think that when I first discovered it, my friends weren't like super into board games, or like, you know, I wasn't as close to the friends who are super into board games, I should say. So it was ages. Well, I think it was ages ago. When was it Root actually released? Root board game. 2018. I think it was. So 5 years ago, I think it must have been 2018, 2019, I first discovered it. So that would have put me squarely in university, like 2nd or 3rd year, I think. And I just forgot about it for ages, to be perfectly honest. But I actually had the pleasure yesterday of actually playing it with a few friends. Because, well, I bought it and I brought it, and, you know, 2 of the friends, they really like board games, to be fair. Well, I think I really like board games. I'm not going to put words in my mouth necessarily, but a few people were interested, but it was only 4 of us, and I was like, okay, you know, it's a rare occasion for me. I do say this, you know, my friends say this as well. It's a rare occasion for me, dear darling, to be particularly, like, highly anticipating something, to be like excited, not to be excited for something that makes me sound emotionless, but to the sense that I don't often have like strong passion for things as other people might do. I have passion, of course, in my own way, but if you compare me to like some of my friends, you might consider me dispassionate, which I think is a bit misleading, but I also don't think it's devoid of truth necessarily. I'm much more sort of like low key, I think, when it comes to things, but I was actually quite excited to play Root, and the thing I knew about it was it's a reasonably complicated board game to explain, because if you don't know, Root is basically an asymmetric war game where everyone are like woodland critters and creatures. It has a very cute and amazing art style. It's a fantastic sort of art style. I don't know, very like storybook-esque, I would almost say, but not quite storybook. It's like an edgy storybook, maybe. Because it kind of suits the thematic of woodland creatures at warfare with each other. But the key part, I suppose, from the strategic, like actual gameplay element of this game is the fact it's asymmetric. You play 4 players. I suppose you could play with more players, to be perfectly honest. I don't really know what's stopping you. But each player plays a different faction, and every faction plays very, very differently. And now I can actually talk about it because now I've actually played it rather than just learning rules. So before we played the game, like I spent actually quite a few hours just like learning the rules of a game to make sure I knew it like offhand, because while it is fun to discover rules at the same time, if you're all trying to discover how to play the game and play the rules at the same time, that's gonna makes your first game take hours, and then there'll be so much going back and forth, checking, referencing the rulebook and that sort of thing. Much better, in my opinion, for someone to know the rules, aka me, even though I haven't played the game myself. I know the rules. I know very vague level strategy. I do not know anything about how to put the strategy in place because I've not played the game, which is good. So then I'm like a sort of instead of having to look things up, I only need to look up things I don't know, and then my friends can just ask me, and I'll be like, oh yeah, you do this, or while they're playing. I mean, the way I tend to play quite cooperatively. I talk about this before. I tend to be very non-competitive when it comes to games, even competitive games itself. I don't really care about winning. I care about the general sort of not even the fight, because I think I put the wrong sort of light on it. While I do care for my friends to have a good time, I think it's sort of disrespectful to my friends being like, they can't have a good time if they're having a competition because one of them might lose. My friends are adults. Like, that kind of comes with the point of these games. Like, it's fun to win, it's fun to lose, and that sort of thing. But for me, it's more like the winning and losing is like a non-factor. It's more like it's sort of like puzzle solving in a way. I like to think about what the optimal strategy is, and a lot of the times that does coincide with trying to play a winning strategy, of course. But a lot of the times, as I talk about a lot in social deception games, I tend to favour really weird gimmicky strategies, and then I eventually get bored of them, which is, I think on reflection is probably the prevailing factor why social deception games sort of bore me after a while. And maybe that's the same thing for Root. So despite the fact I'm singing its praises now, maybe, once I play like 30 games of it, my other friends will just be like, yeah, let's keep going. And I'm just like, I'm bored. I kind of like done everything I want to do with this game, which is, I mean, if that comes to pass, then so be it. And I can't really help it. And if anything, I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts. Sorry, this is I haven't even really spoken about Root yet. So maybe this will be like speaking about board games, and maybe tomorrow I'll speak about Root. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's probably what I'll do. I'll actually like do my review, quote suppose, on Root tomorrow. And today will be to sort of like preliminary things about setting up, being able to talk to, being able to prepare for this thing. So I tend to play quite cooperatively, and it's not actually something I really thought about much until one day I played a game of Mao. You might have, I think it's also called like Dictator or something. It's like a card game where basically you don't know the rules. It's one person is the chairman out, and they have like implied invisible rules or something, and if you break a rule you get a card penalty, but the thing is you're not explained what rule you broke is, and then you just keep playing. And I remember playing this with my friends, and I didn't realize I would even think about it at the time, but my friend told me afterwards, because he was the one who like knew how to play, and I played with my other friends. It was like, and he said to me, hey, you just like kept giving hints, like once you worked out what a rule is, you spent the entire time working out what rule is, and when you worked it out you basically prompted every single one, so then no one like would suffer a penalty. And I was like, I didn't even think about that. But then at the time I was like, maybe it's because I don't want anyone to lose. But I think it's more that I kind of like the idea of solving the puzzle more than I like winning the actual card game itself, which is and it's very inherent in my nature. Well, maybe not inherent in my nature, I don't know, maybe it's the way I was raised. Who particularly knows I do like helping people. And I think that's just kind of how it manifests. My logical side of the brain work out the rule, then tell people how to do it so that they can also, bypass it in their own way. Which is, I don't mean this as a sort of thing like, oh, look how great I am, look how virtuous, I'm holier than thou, because that's not even like how I remotely want to present myself. I'm a human being, I have flaws, I have, I can't think of another synonym for flaws to further emphasize my point. But I have good sides to me, I have bad sides to me, obviously. And that's just, I don't know necessarily if it's a good side. I think if it was like real life, it's a, real life application, it was a good side. It would be a good side. But this isn't a competitive game where, it's kind of established. It's meant to be competitive by nature. Someone's meant to win, someone's meant to lose. Everyone's kind of signed up for that. So it's kind of more like, I'm trying to like bypass the rules in my own way. But anyway, that's not the point. I think it lends well because I tend to be quite cooperative. I don't mind, telling someone you can make a good play against me. This is what I would do in your situation if you were trying to make me lose or something like that. So I basically what I'm trying to say is I play quite unbiasedly. I'd like to think, even towards myself. which is helpful because it means that I think it also helps that my friends will trust me to be like, hey, what does this card do? Like, and they'll show it to me and they'll know that I'm not going to use that like advantage events, and like they'll be like, you know, is this hand like blah 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 blah, and they'll be like, well, now you don't have an ambush card, I'm going to attack you, if I wasn't going to before, which I think is fair. You know, it's sort of like, that's just kind of how it works, right? If you have a reputation of doing something like that, then people are more likely to believe you will follow that reputation you uphold of yourself, right? It's kind of is how it is. That's not meant to be me taking shots at my friends being like, they wouldn't do that. If you're getting that sort of implication from what I'm saying, then I feel like you're reading far too much in the blank spaces I'm leaving between those conversations, where the conversation is basically just from my perspective. I'm not going to fill in the blanks for my friends. If they want to, they can, but they're probably highly uninterested in the audience of mine. No offense to you lot, of course, you're not bad people or anything, but you know, it's more like I'm the one running this YouTube channel, aren't I? But yeah, so where was I going? So I basically learned rules, and it did actually take me a few hours, and it took me a lot of like searching things, because I basically sat there being like, I don't understand how this works, and I had to search through things being like, how does this work? How does this interact? I still don't understand how this works. And actually, one of the ones that really took me forever was like, I really did not understand how the vagabond like worked or did things. Like the item like usage was like so much in my head. But Root is actually very helpful. Right? It has a lot of tutorialization. It has a very, very helpful game mat where basically it's overwhelming, I think, for game mat to begin with. Each player gets their own individual game mat with the characters, and it says like all the information it possibly could for that faction on that game mat, which is so overwhelming. I think when you start playing, you're like, what the heck? There's like 50 different things written on here. But I think it's actual proper use case. It's not a tutorialization thing. It's meant to be like a quick lookup thing, being like, okay, yeah, you know, let's say I'm playing the Eerie Dynasty. I can't remember, can I put in bird cards into my decrees? How many can I put in? And you can just have a quick scan of your board map, be like, oh, I can only put one in if I put a bird card in, and something like that. And that's super useful, I think. And Root really goes above and beyond, I think, to try and help ease into the learning curve, which is one tick in its box. So I learned all rules and we played the game, and it went super well. Like, obviously the first few like turns were really shaky, and like people didn't really know what we're doing, myself included, mind you. Like, even though if I knew the rules, I didn't know how to play the game like strategically, so I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And I'm sure there's an element in my brain where I was just like, I shouldn't play like too adversarial yet, because I feel like you know, they're obviously trying to work out how the rules work. There's a lot of intermingling systems all at the same time, and then I'm like, I shouldn't play anything too adversarial, you know, at the beginning. So I was just kind of like milling about, not really doing anything, I'm gonna be honest. But a lot of it was also my own strategic thing, where I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing with a vagabond. Like, I feel like when you play like Marquise de Cat, when you're playing with Eerie Dynasties, it's very straightforward. I build my army, then I take care of the other army which is on the map to establish my control, and then you're the Woodland Alliance. I'm like, I'm gonna try and subvert this delicate balance as best I can. And then me as a vagabond, I'm like, I'm not even part of any of this. What am I doing? I don't know. But then, you know, we played more rules, and we, you know, they learnt more things, they got more comfortable. I did my best to explain things as things went on, of course. I didn't explain everything at once. This is just me telling you advice. If you ever need to explain things to people, especially like, for example, a board game, start them out with the basics of things they have to know to play the game. Like, they have to know what the battle system is. They have to know what the objective of a game is. But they don't need to know their class's specific ability. Like, the warrior, the Marquise de Cat doesn't need to know about the battle of a field medic ability until it becomes relevant, you know. Drip feed the information in so people can get time to digest things. And I think one thing I established very early on was like, you just need to know how your faction plays. You only need to have a vague understanding of what other people do. And I think that probably, you know, helps ease it in, because it goes from learning like 5 different systems, you know, the base and then the 4 different factions, to being like, okay, I need to learn 2 systems and then have an idea of what the 3 systems can do, but I don't really need to know much more than that. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's something that would be more interesting to hear from my friends' perspectives, but I don't think my friends would have thought about the concept of teaching a board game to the experience of learning that board game to this degree, because, well, I don't know, I'm just kind of conversationally filling up 20 minutes, aren't I? So that's kind of why I am, I suppose, if anything. But yeah, and then things get drip feeded in. You know, there were some things I missed. I forgot to actually explain the field medic system thing until like halfway through the game. I was like, I forgot, I should have said this. I think there was also something with Woodland Alliance I forgot to say, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head anymore. Which, you know, I'm not like hung up about it, and obviously my friends are not going to be hung up about it either, because there's a lot of rules in the game. It's hard to keep everything straight. I forgot about half my like vagabond things, all my turns as well. But eventually, you know, as my friends got more comfortable, the game started really kicking off. I think when it got to the latter half, things were intense, you know. Like with Marquise de Cat built up like a pretty good lead. You know, we just shut down the Woodland Alliance because they like had a pretty crazy lead, and they got a pretty big setback, which was difficult to recover from, to be fair. Perhaps a bit too big of a setback, but those things you learn from that. And then the Eerie Dynasties were slowly ramping up, and then the crazy turn where we were like, okay, the Eerie Dynasties were absolutely going to turn over the next turn, and then my friend playing the Eerie Dynasties pulled off the most insane turn I've ever seen, where they somehow almost managed to not turmoil. They basically did every single step. The only reason that they turmoiled was because they ran out of roosts to build. They literally put all their roosts down on the board. But when they turmoiled, then immediately earned all their all their points back, because they still just had a load of roosts on the board. And that was the sort of thing where I was like, whoa, that was crazy. And she did actually win in the end. And what's even crazier is the fact is, the game was so unbelievably close to win. She won. If she didn't win that turn, I would have won on my turn. If I didn't win on my turn, my friend would have won on his turn as well. And it was just like, whoa. It was so insanely close. And I even spoke about with a person who won later. I was like, I just realised I misplayed. If I had stolen my card from you instead of the other person, I would have nearly guaranteed my victory. It would have been like a 95% chance or something. And it was like, wow, I can't believe how close it was. And that's a really good, beautiful thing about the game, being like, oh, what could I have done differently? Oh, if I just didn't do that, you know, these things you sort of learn, you know, from like, and even learn from watching my friends play, you know, as my friend was playing Marquise de Cat, I was like, oh, you know, it's all about that sort of like zone control, that sort of thing. I think he and agreed as well. He played a bit too passively at the beginning, which allowed Eerie Dynasties to sort of like get a lot of leeway with being able to build up, because he's the one who starts with the army. The other two people couldn't really do anything. And then with the Eerie Dynasties, it was sort of like starting out so aggressively was like it worked out only because Marquise Cat was, I suppose, so passive. But easily in another game, their aggressive start could have led to like a really immediate turmoil, then set them back from a start they could not recover from. And the Woodland Alliance, they revolted super early, which put a huge target on their back, and then it turns out that them losing a base from a revolution is a huge setback for them. So it's like, oh, you know, gotta keep that in mind. If I ever play Woodland Alliance, I need to make sure my base is properly defended. Maybe I hold out on revolutionizing too early, just in case, you know. I don't want to have all the people targeting me, because now I suddenly got like presence on their board, and I wiped out like a big chunk of their army and that sort of thing. And from a vagabond being like, I got to be okay with like exploring these ruins and discarding items even if I don't have a sack, you know, and that sort of thing. I got to turn on the people who I'm here to turn on the people who are like getting building up too quickly when I just couldn't identify it fast enough. You know, I got 2 swords, had 2 boots. It meant I could play super aggressively super early on, but I just didn't. You know, if I turned on the Eerie Dynasties way sooner, maybe I could have won like the turn before the Eerie Dynasty won their turn. And it's like, oh, all these little things which come into play. And it's like, oh, if only. Because there was a thing I saw in that video of like war games make you, I can't remember who made it. And you know what? Instead of saying I can't remember who made it, why not look up who made it? And I can tell you. I could promote their very cool video. And it was just like, it takes like 8 games to learn how to actually play this game, because you need to play twice basically as each faction to really learn the ins and out of how you actually play that faction. And to an extent, Super Dude apparently is the YouTube channel. Root War Games Made Cute. That's the video. And I think there's certainly an element of truth to that. And I think my friends had a good time, to be honest. I think they were interested to play. Another my friend who I initially actually spoke about playing Root with, who didn't get to play because there was too many of us, was like, yeah, it actually seemed like a really cool game when I like came over to check it out, you know, at the same time. And I was like, it was pretty cool. And it's something which, you know, we don't know that close, and so we can't really play it in person all that often, but you know, we can play on Tabletop Simulator. Root has an actual Steam game itself, which I wonder how expensive it is now I think about it, which has all the expansions and things like that, and it's just cool. £11.40, that's actually not too bad. And £21 for the entire expansion. That's not too bad, I would say. But also you could play on Tabletop Simulator, but you know, Root actually takes care of the games for you. It kind of depends, you know. Tabletop Simulator is more like a Swiss Army knife, not a Jack Army knife. But yeah, what else was I going to say about this? Basically, it was a super fun time, you know, and I'm glad for one, I was passionate about it, and, you know, it rewarded the passion with that, it being a really fun time. I'm glad it was such an awesome, like, game that we played. I'm glad my friends had a good time, hopefully. And, you know, I'm excited to play it again at some point. And even if it's not something I play, you know, all that much more, maybe I only play like 10 more games and I eventually get bored, or my friends do, or something like that, then I enjoyed the time I had with it, I suppose. At the very least, I love its art style. And I haven't even spoken about the game yet. So I guess I'll talk about that maybe in tomorrow's episode. But today was more about, I don't know, teaching games? It wasn't really, to be honest. I don't know, I'll think of a title. But if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscriptions, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope you see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.